Thank you very much, Ryan, and hello, everyone. So I'm going to tell you a story today about a team transformation. And while AI is amazing, it really is, it's only one piece of the puzzle. And because I love helping humans share their outcomes, make sense together, and align, I'm going to be talking about the whole team, not just the product and engineering team today. So here are our protagonists. We have Peony, our product manager, in the audience today. This is Invite. They are a Series A company with offices in Auckland and Denver, and they are an awesome team. I'm setting the scene. Oh, and by the way, I'm a bit of a literature nerd, so I'm structuring this in a 3-act structure. Do any of you remember those from like Year 11 English? So I'm setting the scene. The scene is they do document collection software, and they started in Australia in the mortgage market, and they were starting to run out of Australian headroom in their TAM, to use investor language, their total addressable market. And at the same time, their original platform had lots of tech debt that was sort of hampering the responsiveness and ability of the team to go fast. And so, as a result, churn was beginning to climb, and they needed to make some decisions. So, Act 1, the challenge. Invite needed to land a triple axle pivot. The plan was to rebuild the platform because we couldn't continue with the old one. We needed a new geography, and that new geography was the USA. And we also needed to shift our market from mortgage and mortgage brokers to new ideal customer profiles in commercial lending. And that because there was more blue water in that space in the US. Mortgage was quite competitive. And so a small team, 35 people, and to give a sense of the challenge that was ahead of the team. Most of their revenue and customers were still on their first product, which is their Horizon 1 product, but they needed to build this new product and introduce it. And for any of you who've worked across different horizons and created new products from 0 to 1, the sorts of behaviours that you need to enact are different at different stages of your product lifecycle and your business lifecycle. So the team were distracted. There was too much to do. It was really hard to focus, and a difficult decision had to be made. And so 2 years into rebuilding the new product, the board and the exec decided that they actually needed to shape down the team, extend runway, and get the team back to an earlier stage. So that was particularly tough for product and engineering. They had a 40% headcount reduction. 30% total, and the team was now down to 25 people. And then to add to that, the boss said we need to maintain and increase our velocity. We need to act early stage, and we should be looking at AI, but it's not all about AI. What else are we going to do? What else? And so for the first week, the team were feeling some pressure and some survivor guilt because I think it was 20% of the people who Toke surveyed have experienced redundancy this year. It's a thing, and it's a thing not just for the people who've left, but also for the people who are staying behind. And it felt like a really hard ask. But then, Act 2. We got our big girl and big boy and big non-binary pants on, and before I did this talk, I was thinking about Stu. I don't know if he's still here, and being excited and doing the power pose. So we got our big pants on, and the team sort of asked themselves, well, what could be different? Like, how could this work? And so that started with a ways of working workshop, particularly in product and engineering, and we uncovered a whole lot of bottlenecks, and unsurprisingly, a lot of the bottlenecks were in product management and QA. And so the engineers sort of talked about, well, how could they pick up some of that stuff? And they also decided on what would be the AI tools and experiments they would run across the whole product development lifecycle that would accelerate their work. And then the last thing was the unblocking decisions. So if product management is sometimes the bottleneck, Alan, who's the VP engineering, came across the America's Cup's simple constraint about that unlocked the whole team to make great decisions, and it was what makes the boat go faster. And in our case, it was what reduces toil for the customer. And so using those things, the team got underway. And at the same time, because product does not exist in a vacuum, it exists in an ecosystem that is the business, the SLT had a role to play in the breakthrough as well, where in the previous year, I joined File Invite at the start of 2024, and everyone was like this. There were just too many things to focus on. And so a major thing that the SLT did around May this year, at the same time product and engineering were thinking about, well, how are we going to work differently? SLT was really doing the hard work on, well, what are the really important things we're going to focus on? And we boiled it down to just two very important goals for File Invite at this moment, and it was grow US ICP customers, and the other one was lift average revenue per account. And that might sound very dry and very businessy, but actually having those just two things that we wanted to move the needle on meant that teams could align more quickly on, well, was something going to be a priority or not? And then the last thing was permission to play with AI. And I say that because I know there's a dynamic that's happening at the moment where, some people are getting boards and execs just want you to use AI at all costs, and there's actually not a use case for it. But I've also seen, because I work fractionally across companies, the opposite, where teams actually haven't been given the permission or the mandate. They don't know what's safe to use, and consequently there's a kind of a chilling effect on experimentation. And so the team got underway. And as a result of that, the product and the go-to-market teams could really align and sort of work together on what does creating product market fit for US ICP customers actually mean, and also how do we lift revenue. And of course you can only lift revenue if you're creating new value for your customers and your specific ICPs. Talking to customers and listening to calls has become a team sport. And I think Gong was mentioned before. We don't use Gong, we use a platform called Fathom, which I think is a bit cheaper. Fathom is fantastic because it obviously captures all of the transcripts of all the sales call, which are a rich mine of information for product teams. But it also has an AI underneath it that changes the transcript depending on the framework you want to use underneath it. So I always like changing it to the Spiced framework, because Spiced is a sales framework that specifically talks to the pain and the impact of pain that emerges from a conversation that a salesperson is having with a customer. We put in place for quite a long time weekly voice of customer meetings, which got product in the room with CS and sales and product marketing, and we did a lot of sense making together, and we did a lot of Moscow and getting sales and CS to do their Moscows first before they came to product, so that what I've seen happen in other organisations a lot is that the product, poor product people feel like you're alone making the trade-offs. And actually, if you've got the whole organisation helping to make trade-offs, then everybody understands why feature X is not going to be here for another few months. So that team sport for understanding and agreeing trade-offs was a massive unlock for the team. And so then with clarity, like clarity on what we were trying to achieve and how we were going to create more value for customers, came our first AI experiments. And so, I mentioned before the chilling effect of not having an AI, the permission. Operations created a responsible AI policy, and it wasn't massive, it was like maybe 2 or 3 pages, but it sort of gave us some safeguards and guardrails. They set up lunch and learns so that people could be learning together and, really building a kind of a learning community in the business. Product management, I think it was, I forget what percent, but a 60-something% of you guys are all using AI, so none of that is going to be probably new to you. The thing that we did to synthesize all of that call data was we used Reforge AI to help us with the synthesis, and obviously Claude projects for things like PRDs and user stories, and Lovable for rapid prototyping. And at the same time, product marketing were also using Lovable. And how many of you have done a pricing and packaging project before? Yeah, it's political, right? Yeah, there's a lot of people with a stake in how your pricing and packaging works. And it was no different at File Invite. We'd run it was like a 7-week project in 24 that didn't quite get there, and we had another crack in 25, I think about June. And one of the things that AI really was brilliant for, or Lovable specifically was brilliant for, was that the product marketer created a pricing page that looked really polished in Lovable. And it just clicked all the work that we had done previously into place. Everybody could agree. There were minor tweaks and the thing went out. And a week later, we had a deal that was 3x the size of the previous deals we'd been doing, which was amazing. Engineering was skeptical at first. They had been using GitHub Copilot, which, as Alan described to me, was opinionated and blind to their context. And he said discovering Cursor was like going from torchlight to daylight. And they also experimented with other AI coding assistants and agents as well. So Devon, for instance, the team needed to go from React 16 to React 18, and previously a traditional estimate would have had 2.5 weeks of engineering time to do that. With a senior engineer, it took 3 days and $80. And so, they started building their muscles and figuring out how to get that working. And the AI adoption was spreading. It was also like sales started using Grow AI, which is a shout out to a New Zealand company for sales coaching. Grow AI helped one of the sales team to win a deal that he thought was lost. And CS started playing with Breeze, which is HubSpot for tier 1 customer support. It's a pretty good use case. And they also started using Claude to visualize customer ROI data for their quarterly business reviews. And that was a real win for them because they'd previously been putting janky spreadsheets in front of customers, and now they had this lovely polished dashboard. So it was all about improving the customer experience across the business. Of course, with AI comes new challenges. And it's interesting to see the Homer Simpson mobile in a previous presentation. I'm sure you're all familiar with the skateboard to car idea of MVP. And the challenge of being able to create the Homer Simpson mobile with AI creates a whole new set of challenges. Part of it is, for yourselves and your product teams figuring out, well, what's the highest value part of this jalopy, but also stakeholders having seen the Homer Simpson mobile are like, well, where is it? I saw that last week. Why isn't it here? Why isn't it here in the product? It's like, oh, well, in our case, it was for management insights dashboards. And surprise, creating great data visualizations actually takes quite a lot of work. And it's not just going to be there overnight. So that creates new stakeholder management conversations that need to be had. And AI tried to hide bugs. At one point, it fixed a bug by removing some authentication code. And it was good on bugs and code, but not good on bugs and data. And so the engineers decided that they would pair with Cursor rather than just like leaving it running as an agent in a window. And that's not what every team is doing, but that's what's worked really well for them. In the meantime, ops were not resting on their laurels, and so these lunch and learns were happening, and ops set a PII honey trap in an all-company lunch and learn where, everybody know what PII is, personally identifiable information. They gave us an exercise building on CS's QBR's sort of dashboarding. They synthesized some synthetic data for us that had some PII in it, fake PII, but and got us to code up a dashboard as a way of sort of teaching the whole business how to do something like this. And of course, everybody got really excited and was right in there. And then, we've actually put the PII into the dashboard. And so, there was a lesson there about making sure that when you're using these tools, you're remembering the responsible part of responsible AI. Act 3, sticking the landing. So one of the engineers said to me, we did an AI hackathon, and he said, if it weren't for Cursor, we wouldn't have had time for this hackathon, which just struck me enormously. And I know this thing about going fast, and you're always being asked to go faster, and that is one of the great tensions, because you want to go fast. I think Toke said yesterday, you want to be an efficient deliverer of customer value. And so we're always being asked to go faster, and that needs to be balanced with, yes, but are we doing the right things faster? But even running lean, product can now show rather than tell. So there's, lots of micro improvements to workflow where you're needing to use less words to describe what behaviour you want from a product. The engineers are making more decisions and pairing with an indefatigable coding and test partner. So they also have been using Claude Code as their code reviewer. Apparently it's got quite a nice grown-up personality for that purpose. And voice of customer meetings went from complaint sessions to strategy sessions, because by being faster, we gave the organisation confidence that we would get to their things. We gave customers confidence that they were being listened to and their feedback was being actioned. And it created more space for us to spend time actually thinking about, well, what's the next 2-year horizon of product? What's the foresight we need to move into? Which, when you're running at a rate of knots just to ship the next kind of 2 weeks, or the next sprint, or the next quarter, it's quite hard to get into. So incredibly, I think we've pulled off landing that triple axel. And any of you who've ever worked in innovation knows that for every pivot away from your current business model or point of adjacency you are, the more risk there is in what you're doing. And so the team have, with AI, really spent probably 4 months to go the last way through all of the threshold features they needed to build to get back to sort of parity on the previous platform, and then starting to get into the sort of, I'm thinking of a Kano model, the kind of performance features that actually are really going to delight the new ICP customers. And we've gone from customers not migrating because we didn't have threshold features in the ICP to actually now a lot of them agreeing to come over. And the team now have, I think it's more than 50% of the customer base are US based. So that sort of pivot is working. And with the new ICPs, we got really specific on who those ideal customer profiles were. And I don't know, quite often in the last couple of years when I've been working with businesses, they don't necessarily know who their ICPs are. They're not, or they do, but there's too many of them, and that creates, again, like whose problem do you focus on? So being really specific about your ICP is really going to help. And having focused on commercial lending, the revenue coming in is now, kind of 3x where it was. And the tofu is always the issue, but that's one for marketing. Oh, and also the team did a bridge raise, so that successfully is closing about now, I think. So it's probably a triple axel plus some other ice skating move that I'm not technical enough to know about. Perhaps, do we have any ice skaters among us? Best of all, we've got happy customers, and all of us are makers in the room. It is so nice to get good feedback coming in, and because people will always complain before they will praise you. And so it's been lovely having sort of a flow of great feedback coming in that validates that not only are we going fast, but we're actually doing the right stuff for our customers. So, the denouement. My reflections on, I think it's since May, so kind of 7-8 months. AI amplifies clarity or confusion, and so creating results as an AI amplified team. AI is, of course, the accelerator, but you've still got to have the right ingredients underneath that. And I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni's cohesive team pyramid, with trust at the bottom. If you've got trust, you can have constructive conflict, and from that you get to commitment and shared goals. And then you hold each other accountable for doing what you say you will do, and then you get results. And the team have really managed to do this kind of turnaround of the business with a foundation of trust. They accepted the challenge and the conflict of a restructure and the challenge of the CEO to move quicker and to double down on product market fit. And they chose to evolve. At the same time, we created clarity so that they knew what they were aiming for. We stayed close to customers, and we created a learning and sharing culture, which I think, as somebody mentioned, growth mindset. You want a culture where if something's not quite right, you can actually have a continuous improvement conversation that feels loving, not pointed. I crossed out we're doing the hard yards on alignment again and again, because it's not a one and done. It's something that you have to work at. It's the human stuff, and being accountable. So what's next for File Invite? We want to create more opportunities for customers and remove more toil, and we will do that with and without AI. We haven't actually shipped an AI product yet. I think we wanted to get our training wheels on first and really understand what the productivity gains would be for us. But that hackathon I mentioned, we had some time to spend thinking about, well, if we had the time, what would be the few things we would do that would really make a big difference. And so we've got that plan ahead for the beginning of the new year. And we also need to lean into our metrics for growth, because we've been, I guess, when you're replatforming a product, we've sort of known, there's been some certainty around product features we needed to build, and we've been able to lean into the qual insights of sort of new customers coming from the US. But as we grow, we're going to need more metrics. And I'll end on this. Just because we can build something in 15 minutes with AI doesn't mean we shouldn't remember what customers actually want. And I realised, because I'm a maker, I'm not very good at marketing. I don't have an end slide with my email address on it and how you can get in touch with me. But if you do want to have a chat, reach out via LinkedIn, or I'm at PocketCPO.co.nz. Thanks, everyone.